Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on comparing replication and disaster recovery. My name is Kirk Lane. I'm a senior sales engineer here at Phoenix Snap. Today we're going to cover the traditional backup replication options as well as the true disaster recovery solution offered using Zerto. Let's start by discussing how typical existing data protection solutions work. Nightly backups are still extremely common within business, and many of you are probably doing this today. However, snapshot-based technology is increasingly common and allows for a lower recovery point objective than simply running one backup per day. This is an excellent option for many businesses, given its ease of use. However, it still leaves any data newer than the last snapshot vulnerable. Quite often, businesses are implementing multiple strategies and solutions to accommodate different types of disasters. These can range from network and power outages to malicious attacks and human error. These solutions can be helpful, but also bring different operations and oftentimes their own RPO and RTO numbers. The goal for any type of data protection is to reduce the chances of data loss and downtime occurring. Let's take a look at the technology and offerings behind these solutions in order to better understand our business needs and what we should be considering in order to make the best decisions for our organizations. Let's have a look at the matrix that compares virtual awareness on the left-hand side and enterprise-class capabilities across the bottom. A big player in the game is storage-based replication. Most everyone will agree that storage-based replication is enterprise-class, but storage replication doesn't necessarily have the awareness into what lives in the storage, making it not so virtually aware. Guest-based replication neither has the virtual awareness or the enterprise-class features like scalability and performance. Virtual machine snapshot-based replication technologies have a few more features than guest-based replication for enterprise-class readiness. They also have some virtual awareness with boot ordering and virtual machine placement knowledge. Hypervisor-based replication technologies integrate with the hypervisor in order to provide a much greater virtual machine environment awareness, while also having the ability to provide more enterprise-class features in the way of scalability, quicker RPOs and RTOs, full orchestration, and minimal or no disruption to the enterprise for installation, testing, and maintenance. Let's take a moment and discuss how snapshot-based storage replication works. First, you would need to deploy a compatible storage array in a remote location and configure replication between the two. The first replication event will copy all of the data from the production SAN to the recovery SAN. From there, a scheduled replication job will take a snapshot of any data that has changed since the last replica, read it, and send it through to the recovery SAN. This does provide data protection, but your restoration options are limited by your snapshot schedule. There are a few key factors to be aware of when considering snapshot-based replication solutions. Storage snapshots require large amounts of disk utilization for snapshots and reserves. There is also a storage vendor lock-in, requiring you to buy the same storage in the recovery site to match a protected site. Recovery is on a LUN basis and not VM level. Virtual machine snapshot technologies are usually scheduled out of hours to avoid conflicts and the busiest working hours. This limits the retention for recovery points and reduces the ability to hit a target RPO. In this example, if you take a snapshot of a virtual machine every hour, you're looking at 24 snapshots just for one day. This picture shows what that snapshot chain would look like for a single VM. With 50 VMs in your environment, that's 1,200 snapshots in just one day. With Zerto's journal-based technology, 50 VMs equals 50 individual journals with no impact to the protected VM whatsoever. Simple and scalable. If you look at the knowledge base articles from VMware and other snapshot-based solution companies, you'll find posts just like this that do not recommend taking snapshots during peak hours or keeping more than 2 to 3 snapshots per VM. So that means only 2 to 3 recovery points per VM, and you're taking them at night just like your nightly backup. Restoring from a snapshot requires a lengthy process to get it up and running, which takes time, coordination, and upkeep. You are also locked in on the hypervisor itself. Performing the snapshot typically stuns a protected virtual machine, so it can't be done on critical VMs during production or peak hours. Finally, testing will impact protection. It must be performed when another snapshot is not about to occur. Back in 2011, replication in enterprise virtual environments was done at the storage layer. Zerto saw this was in the wrong place as you were locked into replicating between two matching storage arrays. This meant that first of all, you were unable to mix and match your storage between your sites, and you had the complexity of replicating per LUN. It was so complicated that it even required a separate management software for virtual machine integration, and couldn't fully realize all the benefits of virtualization because you're tied into the physical layer. Zerto revolutionized business continuity and disaster recovery by moving the replication into the hypervisor to make it software defined. This includes all of the recovery automation, removing the need for a separate solution, and enables the simplicity of protecting on a per VM basis. Zerto isn't alone in this trend. Everything from your security, networking, and storage is now moving into the hypervisor to realize the benefits of being software defined. Now let's compare ZVR to storage-based snapshot technologies. Oftentimes people think about license costs alone, but think about how much your storage costs you, and also how much extra storage you have to account for on all sites, based on your snapshot replication strategy. For example, start with 100 terabytes of virtual machine storage space. You would need a 25% overhead of storage space on both sites to accommodate your snapshot to be used for a single point-in-time recovery. Zerto's solution is storage agnostic and also doesn't utilize snapshots, therefore only requires about 10% of extra storage on the destination side only. Keep in mind this journal is maintaining thousands of recovery points in time versus just one. You also gain the additional benefit of built-in recovery orchestration and automation versus having to operate and maintain a secondary solution to your snapshot replication in the previous example. The same technology with Zerto allows you to recover more to anything and faster than ever before. Orchestration is one of the hardest parts of implementing a disaster recovery plan based around storage replication. Typical DR orchestration tools will require hypervisor lock-in. This means that whatever hypervisor vendor and version is at your production site must be matched at your DR site. Compatibility must also be maintained at the orchestration, network, and storage layers. Storage lock-in. The SAN must be compatible with your primary site to receive replication data and must be configured as closely as possible to match your production site. A separate management interface. Your orchestration and automation tool is now yet another tool to manage during both production and failover periods. Finally, more time to recover. Once you have declared a failover, your failover site is going to need to rescan storage in order to find the migrated data stores before it can begin the process of failing over virtual machines. By comparison, Zerto provides a single, easy-to-use interface that integrates all aspects of provisioning, configuring, and maintaining your disaster recovery solution, as well as the automation required to initiate a failover in just a few clicks. Another key concept in Zerto is consistency grouping. We took the concept of placing all the VMs in the same storage LUN in order to achieve data consistency between replicated VMs and applied it across your entire environment. Typically, you would take all the VMs that belong to your enterprise application and place them on the same LUN, snapshot that LUN, replicate it, and recover the LUN, and all your VMs will be there from the same point in time. What if you want to mix and match storage or LUNs for your VMs, but still need to maintain data consistency between them? What if you need to replicate to the cloud? You can't do that with traditional methods using storage replication across multiple arrays or vendors. Zerto took the replication and moved it to the hypervisor so it's no longer dependent on the storage replication. With our virtual protection groups, we protect all the VMs together that you add to this VPG, give them all granular checkpoints with right order fidelity across the VMs, and allow you to recover them together from the same point in time. It doesn't matter what storage or LUN the VMs are on, replicate from anything to anything. When you create the protection group, you pre-configure all of your settings, networks, security, sizing, prioritization, so it's all ready to go when you need to fail over. For comparison, typical technologies like storage-based LUN replication require you to place application VMs in the same LUN if you want to replicate the data consistently, and configure a snapshot to occur on a given schedule. When you do this, a couple of things start to happen. Datasets grow larger, and eventually you're forced to place VMs for a single application across multiple LUNs. Then you need to manage replication schedules so they occur at the same time for recovery consistency. Once that data rate of change begins to grow too large for the replication window, you must raise your RPO by adding more time between each schedule in order to allow for all the data to send before the next snapshot takes place and needs to be replicated. So virtual machines for the same application are now spread across multiple replication schedules, which will cause difficulty when it's time to recover them. They are all from different points of time, looking for data or changes that aren't going to exist where they are expected. This results in lost time. Time for people to recover the data to a certain point in time. Time for people to repair the recovered data so it can be usable. And more time for people to re-enter all the lost data, if that can even be done. Of course, you're also losing the time and money of incoming transactions, plus the time your employees are losing while being pulled away from their day-to-day job to help through this recovery process. You now need to multiply these issues across many applications. There is no consistent recovery, and this is not scalable. With Zerto Virtual Replication, you place all the VMs you want to protect and recover together into the same consistency group, no matter what LUN or storage they are on, and the data will replicate continuously and give you recovery point-in-time checkpoints each time the data across all the VMs is consistent with write order fidelity. You may also notice here that these numbers are drastically different from the previous slide, where we had replication schedules from 15 minutes to hours or days, to these VPG RPOs being within seconds each. With continuous replication, you gain all the flexibility that your applications demand, including no scheduling of replication jobs, reducing the complexity of your DR plan, no snapshots required, removing the impact on your production workload, virtual machine level consistency grouping, allowing replication to happen agnostic of the source storage, recovery point objectives in seconds and recovery time objectives in minutes for reduced downtime and data loss, and the ability to rewind and recover at any level from the file to the entire site. With hypervisor-based replication, you typically have to have both a replication engine and an orchestration automation engine to give you the same type of solution that Zerto provides as one. Let's look at some of the competition and what you may find without the orchestration automation tool, and also what you can gain when adding another solution on top to give you those features. Even with low advertised recovery point objectives, vendors sometimes recommend against using those settings, especially at scale. The same goes for the number of recovery points you are looking to keep. If you need to keep many recovery points, only keep those on a few VMs if possible. This is not scalable and does not give you many recovery options. Zerto is a scale-out architecture, meaning every environment, big or small, gets the same level of protection and features. The Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance, or VRA, is also scale-up and can be resized at any time without impacting replication. There is no dedicated network or hardware required for ZVR, meaning cost and complication savings right out of the gate. Zerto replications happens after the write to local disk, eliminating the performance impact. Zerto journals don't require additional local disk space or disk writes. And Zerto is agnostic to your local infrastructure, allowing greater flexibility when recovering to a cloud provider. Zerto's journal-based replication allows you to roll back very quickly with little to no loss, and sometimes you can use the same solution to recover from multiple types of disasters. The majority of use cases can take advantage of one solution or cloud provider that can give you access to these capabilities for all of your disasters, including site failures, application failures across virtual machines, single virtual machine failure, or even file-level recovery from any of those virtual machines. This goes a little deeper into how the continuous replication works, and then how an isolated failover test happens, all while replication continues and there is still no impact to the protected virtual machines. Failover tests are used not only to fully test the DR strategy without downtime, but also to plan for patches and upgrades and migration tests before committing to a failover. Zerto's automated orchestration will clean up the failover test upon completion and produce a full report in the test statistics to be used for compliance with the DR test. When the VM writes to local disk, the ZVR tracks those blocks in memory and replicates them to the target site. The data is written to the target journal and a recovery checkpoint is created. During a failover test, a test virtual machine is created using the data in the journal. The failover test VM writes its data to a scratch drive, which is then cleaned up automatically at the end of the test. Zerto has been selected as the disaster recovery solution for organizations in all industries and at nearly any scale. Let's look at barriers to innovation to help you to remove lock-in. With one strategic software solution using one interface, platform, and skill set, you can protect and recover VMs between your VMware vSphere environments in a private cloud with any storage, multiple versions, and multi-hypervisor. Can you know for sure exactly what platforms or versions you'll have across your sites 3 years from now? You can migrate virtual machines from multiple data centers and hypervisors into other data centers. Or maybe you want to consolidate major data centers into your main vSphere data center. We also support this replication over any distance. You can remove the requirement for managing your own BCDR site altogether by replicating to Phoenix Snap as a Zerto Cloud Service provider. This would move your DR to an OpEx model. You would have a managed service, which is especially useful in the event of a disaster, as you have someone to call to initiate and manage the failover process for you. Zerto also supports replicating to public cloud, bringing public cloud into your BCDR strategy. There are some important considerations you can make in order to expand your company's operational expenditures instead of capital expenditures. For example, you consider new BCDR solutions with low RPO and RTOS. Simplify your BCDR plan with always-on protection and virtual awareness. You can augment or replace your storage-based replication. Ease pain points from your other solutions. Replicate between different SAN vendors. You can migrate to a new environment with subsequent DR from that environment. You can replicate from VMware to Hyper-V or Hyper-V to VMware. You can utilize multi-site and multi-tenant BCDR plans. Upgrade from scheduled replication jobs. And upgrade from guest-based solutions. To recap, take the time to figure out your needs and future-proof your business. Future-proof against site lock-in or vendor lock-in, whether it be from hardware or storage platforms, or even hypervisor platforms. Protect your business and maximize uptime with the lowest RPOs and RTOs, with testing and reporting to prove it. Use your solution to migrate, consolidate, and move workloads. Move workloads to the cloud for disaster recovery as a service, or use a cloud for disaster recovery as a service right from your on-premises environment. It can all be easier with better protection and recoverability than you ever thought possible. Make sure with whatever solution you select, you calculate your recovery time objectives. This can be determined by working from the number of VMs to be failed over, the number of hosts used at the recovery site, how many VMs each host will have to boot up, and how many VMs can be booted on each host in a given amount of time. Additionally, with any solution, make sure you test your design. Make it easy to prove your recoverability. If you can't test it successfully, you can never be sure that you can recover. Stay in compliance and get a solution that does this for you and allows you to rest peacefully, knowing your solution will work when you need it. To wrap things up here, remember that disasters come in many shapes and sizes. There are many choices available for disaster recovery solutions. Make sure to consider virtual awareness and enterprise-class capabilities. Grouping of virtual machines for replications is a large part of building a maintainable, scalable disaster recovery solution. Zerto's always-on replication with journal-based protection removes the vulnerabilities and performance impact of snapshot-based solutions. Your DR site choices should not be limited by your current vendors. You should have the flexibility to choose a solution that works best for your needs. Finally, calculate your RTOs and test them regularly. Your solution is only as good as its most recent test. And this concludes the main presentation. Thank you again to everyone who attended today, as well as everyone who attended the previous webinars in our series. As mentioned previously, anyone who attended all three was entered into a drawing for a Kindle Paperwhite e-reader. And it looks like today's winner is Jose Barriga. Congratulations. We can contact you shortly to get that arranged with you. And if there's any questions, I can answer those at this time. And if not, then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you once again for joining with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.